Hello kids, hope you all are doing well. In the earlier video, we did the first part of your first chapter. So, in this video, I will do the second part of your first chapter. In the earlier video, we understood how the Dutch reached Asia, the relationship between the Dutch and the Canadian Kingdom, and how the Dutch power was established in the coastal areas in Sri Lanka. So, in this video, we will move from here in the lesson. So here, I would like to explain the organization of the Dutch administration, judiciary affairs of the Dutch, economic activities of the Dutch, social and cultural activities of the Dutch, and finally, we will see the impact of the Dutch rule on Sri Lanka. Okay, now let's go to the organization of the Dutch administration. I think you can remember about the VOC. VOC means the Dutch East India Trade Company. Can you remember why it was established? Yes, it was established to handle the matters regarding to Asia. So, under the Dutch rule, the highest authority was belonged to the board of members of the VOC company in Holland. But we already know the Holland and Asia are situated very far away. So that's why in 1609 VOC company appointed a separate governor for Batavia in order to rule the areas under Dutch control in Asia. And they have appointed an advisory council to assist the governor in Batavia in Java. And we already know that there were several areas in Asia that were controlled by the Dutch. For an example, we can take the coastal areas of Sri Lanka, coastal areas of India, Batavia, Java. So they had to appoint separate governors to control each and every lands. So according to that rule, they appointed a governor to rule the coastal areas in Sri Lanka, and they had to appoint an advisory council to assist the governor in Sri Lanka. And then they appointed 3 commanderies as Galle, Colombo and Jaffna under the Dutch to control the areas. Okay, Pratya, I told you that they have appointed a Dutch governor to handle the matters about the Sri Lanka, and he was appointed by the VOC in Holland, and as I told you, they appointed a separate advisory council to assist the Dutch governor. So we can see that this Dutch governor is kind of a powerful position. Even though he had to work under the authority of Batavia, he could take independent decisions about the urgent matters which regards to Sri Lanka. So we can see some powers and responsibilities as handle the administrative matters about the rule, about the areas which are under Dutch rule, and collecting taxes, appointing officers, and grant lands. So in this way, we can see this Dutch governor was powerful in the coastal areas of Sri Lanka under the Dutch. As I told you earlier, Putera, under the governor there were 3 commanderies in Sri Lanka under the Dutch rule. So they were Colombo Commandery, Galle Commandery and Jaffna Commandery. And when we talk about the Colombo Commandery, this was the administered under the Dutch governor directly, and coastal areas including Colombo, Kalutara and Negombo, as well as inland areas such as Hanwell, Anguruwatota and Malwana were belong to this Colombo Commandery, and there was a separate commandery for Jaffna, and it was administered under a separate commander, and the areas in the coastal belt from Puttanam north to Jaffna and the Jaffna area, and the areas up to Batticaloa in the eastern coast belongs to this Jaffna Commandery. And when we talk about the Galle Commandery, again a separate commander has been appointed to look into the affairs of the Galle Commandery, and the coastal areas from Benthara River up to Batticaloa and the inland areas belonging to those parts under Galle Commandery. And although it had been an accepted practice that the two commanders in Galle and Jaffna commanderies should act under the governor in Colombo Commandery, and they had the opportunities to act independently when practically fulfilling their task, because they could not reach Colombo for each and everything. So sometimes we could see these commandos in Galle and Jaffna acted independently, but however the main position, governor, was staying in Colombo, and he gave the rules and the commands about to the commanderies under the Dutch rule. Okay, we already know there were three commanderies under the Dutch rule as Colombo, Jaffna and Galle. And when we see a commandery, it had three parts mainly. You can see them here: civil administration, military administration and trade division. So we need to know who were the officers appointed to control these commanderies, what kind of administrative structure it had. So let's talk about the civil administration first. In civil administration, we could see Disavanis, which are controlled by Disaves under the Dutch rule. So there were Mudlis and Vidanis in charge of various services offered by Disavanis. For an example, Mudlis were appointed to multi-purpose functions, and Vidanis were appointed to handle affairs about cinnamon peelers and all. And we can see this Disavani was divided into corrales, and these corrales were controlled by corrale. This corrale division was controlled by the corrale, and then the corrale again divided into pathos, and they were controlled by the Attu corrale, and then these pathos were divided into villages, and these villages were controlled by the village headman. And when we talk about the military administration or military affairs, there were captains for each commandery to handle the military affairs. And when we talk about the trade division, again we can say two main officers, as Upper Human as the senior trader, and under him we could see Human, and he was the person in charge of land revenue. So in this way, the administration under the Dutch was well structured. But Putha, I need to say another thing also. They have appointed Dutchmen to the highest posts in this administrative structure, and Disaves and other lower levels of the administrative structure, they have appointed the native people So that means even though they gave a kind of power with the possessions to the native people, they kept the highest power, and they took all the decisions about the coastal areas in Sri Lanka under the Dutch rule. Okay, first we learned about the organization of the Dutch administration. So now we are going to pay our attention to the judiciary affairs of the Dutch. So here the main point is they have introduced as the Roman Dutch law, as well as they introduced a new judiciary system to Sri Lanka. The Dutch revised the Roman Dutch law to suit the local laws and customs that existed in Sri Lanka and then implemented it in the country. And in their judiciary affairs, in their judiciary system, we can see a high court as the Supreme Court, and this was named as the Raad van Justice. The head of this court was called as Hoofd Administrator, and these courts heard criminal cases, as well as these high courts had been established in all the three commanderies as Galle, Jaffna and Colombo. And then we can see a kind of court as civil court that was called as Civil Raad, and civil court heard the civil cases related to damages below 120 rix dollars, as well as related to marriages. And these civil courts are established in Galle, Colombo and Jaffna in these three commanderies. And then we can see land courts as Land Raad, as well as these land courts had been established in Colombo, Galle, Jaffna, Trincomalee, Batticaloa and Mathura. Disave was the chairperson of these courts, and this court system to be a simple, less expensive and easy to use system for the local people. Then we can see three courts again as fiscal courts, Disave courts and Headman courts. The lowest level of the Dutch judiciary was these fiscal courts, Disave courts and Headman courts. The local officers such as village headman, Vidane, Modeli and Korala were the officers of these judiciary levels, and little judiciary power relevant to their positions also. The traditional rules and laws that existed among people in Jaffna area were formulated as laws, and then they were implemented. So in this way we can see a new judiciary system was established under the Dutch in Sri Lanka. Map marking is really important in studying history. In this map, you can see very important places in the coastal areas of the Sri Lanka under the Dutch rule. So please remember how to mark the maps, especially Jaffna, Batticaloa, Galle, Karuthara, Colombo, Puttalam and Kalpiti. Well, now I'm going to pay my attention on the economic activities of the Dutch. The Dutch implemented their economic policy in a way that they could gain maximum economic profits from the areas that were controlled by them. Actually, you already know they had two main objectives. One of them was gaining maximum economic profits, and the other was spreading their religion. So, they implemented their economic policy in order to gain the maximum economic profits. So let's see what are the economic activities done by them. Promoting cinnamon cultivation, processing and trading cinnamon. They paid their most attention towards the cinnamon cultivation in Sri Lanka, and trading other items like nuts, pearl, ivory, pepper, nutmeg, cardamom, elephants and beeswax. The tax charged from lands. Reduce the expenditure on importing wines and textile. Generate additional income by manufacturing items in Sri Lanka. So here I will explain how they promoted cinnamon cultivation and what kind of tax charge from the lands, and then how they reduce their expenditure and generate additional income. Okay, let's see how they did cinnamon cultivation in Sri Lanka. The Dutch got the cinnamon that naturally grew in the woods at the beginning, and then later they started to cultivate cinnamon in various areas like Colombo, Kalutara, Alutgama and Matara. And can you remember Mahabade department was introduced by the Portuguese about the cinnamon cultivation. So the Dutch continued this Mahabade department, and they made this Mahabade department function really efficiently. So this Mahabade department was existed from the times of the Portuguese, as I told you earlier, to handle affairs relating to collection and trading of cinnamon. And the Dutch brought this Mahabade department under a separate captain, and they used traditional labor roster method, and they made a register of the names of the cinnamon peelers, and according to that, annually an adult peeler had to peel an amount of cinnamon to the company free of charge. So in this way they have promoted cinnamon cultivation to get maximum profits. Okay. Apart from cinnamon cultivation, the taxes they charged from lands were also a very important policy under the Dutch. The Portuguese had prepared a type of registers called tombo, which contained the details of ownership of lands and the taxes to be collected from those lands. So, the Dutch further regularized those registers and prepared 3 types of tombos in Sri Lanka. So here you can see those 3 types of tombos. The first one, family tombo. The second one, land tombo, and third one, school tombo. So let's see what is family tombo. This family tombo had the details of the families lived in a village. So when they are collecting taxes, it was very easy for them to collect the taxes from each family. And the second one was land tombo, and this had the details of the lands that belongs to a family that lived in a village. So according to a land tombo, it describes the types of the cultivations available in those lands and the taxes to be collected from those lands by the company also. So, for an example, I'll give the details contained in a land tombo of the Dutch. Dombagahawatha land belonging to Don Bastian Apuhami of Ratmananegama. Number of coconut trees 195. Tax to be collected 1 Rex dollar and 24 stever. So according to that, we can see the who is the landowner is mentioned there, and where is the land mentions there, and what kind of trees in the lands is mentioned there, and the tax also is mentioned in this tombo. So it was very easy for them when they were collecting taxes. And the third tombo was school tombo, and it consisted the names of the parents of children lived in a village and the date of birth and the dates of leaving schools of the children, and dates of moving to another village also. So that means the information of each and every member and each and every family in the village were collected by the Dutch to gain their economic purposes as well as their other motives. Furthermore, the Dutch took steps to reduce the amount of the money that the company had to spend on importing rice and textile from other countries. So, they have taken some steps to reduce the expenditure. And on the other way, they took steps to generate additional income by manufacturing items. So, it was very good to fulfill their economic purposes, that means to gain maximum profits from Sri Lankan coastal area. So let's see what kind of things that they did to generate additional income by reducing the expenditure. Making arrangements to bring Muturajavela under cultivation. So if they have developed the cultivation, that means they can get an additional income. And making efforts to increase the production of rice by renovating tanks. You already know the tank system was built to development of the agriculture. So the Dutch had to import rice and textile from other countries. So it just made the expenditure increased. So in order to decrease the expenditure and generate additional income, they developed the tank system in Sri Lanka, for an example, Yodhana and Kantale, and they increased the production of rice in Sri Lanka. And another thing, they developed the cultivation such as sugarcane, pepper, cardamom, coffee, mulberry and indigo. And they developed local industries such as weaving cloth, dyeing cloth and making bricks and charts. So if they are developing the local industries, especially textile industry, so they don't want to spend more money to import textile from another countries, as well as they can generate additional income by selling them. And they have constructed canals like Hamilton Canal and used them for the transportation of goods. And in this way, they tried to generate additional income and decrease the expenditure too. So in this way, they maintain their economic policy mainly to gain the maximum economic benefits. Okay, we talked about the Dutch administration and their economic policy. So let's see their social and cultural policy. That means what kind of social and cultural affairs that the Dutch had. So in here we know that one of the main purposes of the Dutch coming Asia is spreading their religion. So what was their religion? Yes, the religion of the Dutch were Protestantism. So after capturing the coastal areas, they tried to spread their religion in the coastal areas of Sri Lanka. So they brought clergy from Holland to convert people to Protestantism, and they used education as an effective strategy to promote their religion. So how they used this education to promote their religion? First of all, they have established schools for the local people also. They established a system of institutes called schools, and they promoted their religion. How they did it? But they made compulsory for all the children in the villages to attend those schools which was established by them. And education was provided in the mother tongue of the children, but the prayers were given prominence in the school curriculum. So that means if they wanted to attend to the schools, they have to do the prayers. So if they are Buddhism or any other local religion, can they do the prayers? No. So automatically they had to convert, or they had to go or embrace Protestantism to attend to the school, and attending school is compulsory. So in this way they promoted their religion through the local people. In addition to that, native language, that means Sinhala and Tamil, music and scriptures were taught, and a formal examination system was started in these schools. And they appointed a team of officers to supervise schools, and as well as they established separate schools for the children of the Europeans. And higher education was given in the Dutch language at the seminary in Colombo. So in this way, if they wanted to get the higher education, they wanted to learn the Dutch language also. In this way, the Dutch took steps to convert people to their religion through the education, and they gave various positions, government positions and titles, those who were educated through their schools. So in this way they promoted their religion, as well as they got the support of the local people to them. And another policy, that means cultural and social policy, was they brought a printing press to this country for the first time in 1739. And they printed Bible and distributed throughout the country. So in this way, they implemented the social and cultural policy in order to spread their religion. Okay, we need to know what kind of impact happened because of the Dutch rule in Sri Lanka. So here I will divide it into 3 parts: political impact, economic impact, and the social and cultural impact. Actually, under the political impact, they have introduced a new judiciary system. As I told you earlier, we have discussed earlier, and they introduced a new economic policy, and they introduced coffee cultivation, and they developed the cinnamon cultivation. They developed local agriculture and tank system. So these are kind of economic impact, and let's see what kind of social and cultural impact we had because of the Dutch. Construction of houses with verandas, columns and higher roofs following Roman architecture. An introduction of varieties of foods like cake, pickle and cookies. We already know now cookies is kind of traditional food in Sri Lanka, but it was introduced because of the Dutch. Addition of burghers to the Sri Lankan society. One of the main nationalities in Sri Lanka is burghers. They have added, that nationality was added because of the Dutch rule as an impact. An addition of words into Sinhala and Tamil languages, we can see several words were added because of the Dutch rule. Here you can see what kind of words added into the Sinhala language because of the Dutch rule. The words about architecture and furniture are soldere, that means upstairs, tarapu, stairs, balcony, janeiro, kamare, stopu, iskurupu, almari. And notaris and tolk are the words about the judiciary system. And vendesi, skole, that means school, kuvitansi, kantoru, oppu, and budale. These kind of words were added into the Sinhala language because of the Dutch rule. Okay, here you have some questions to do. There are 5 questions related to this lesson, Puta. The first one, briefly explain the organization of the Dutch administration. The second one, explain the strategies used by the Dutch to spread their religion in Sri Lanka. Third one, explain the establishment of the schools under the Dutch. Fourth one, write 5 impacts of the Dutch rule on Sri Lanka. Here you can write political, economic, social and cultural impacts of the Dutch rule. And fifth one, write 5 words which were added into Sinhala language because of the Dutch. So do the questions in your writing book. Thank you very much for joining with us today. So be safe.